It's just a simple kiss and no one has to ever know.
Welcome to my so utterly famous book reviews with me. If I could encourage you to do book reviews, it can encourage me to do book reviews. Because what books you think are interesting and what you emotionally like or love is cool because it is distinct to you. You walk into a library and there's what? 3 million books in there. What are you gonna pick and why? But that being said, I went all the way to the beginning of Little House in the Big Woods, the first book in the Little House on the Prairie series. I think it was about time I went back in time to read the first book of the series since I started at the 5th book. But I love that because, okay, the author is Laura Ingalls Wilder. And if you pick up her book after she's written 4 other books, you get to see where she started and how she got to where she got. It's like listening to an artist's 5th album body of work and then going back in time listening to their debut album, and you see how much they've grown, how much they didn't have control in the beginning, how they were like making mistakes, and how the 5th body of work is like professional. Like, if you listen to Love Sucks by Avril Lavigne, you hear it and you think this is too perfect, this is too on the nose, this is too pop punk. But then you go back in time to her debut album and you listen to, okay, I love all of those songs, like Tomorrow, Things I Will Never Say, Mobile, like that perspective of I'm in a hometown. I'm only fell in love with you because I see you every day at school. If I lived in any other city or any other town or any other state, I wouldn't fall in love with you. It's just happenstance, right? It's happenstance that I fell in love with you because I see you every day. That's why like teenage relationships are so funny to me. Like, how are you gonna marry? That's your first love. Literally, if you went and lived in any other town, you would have never met this person. So maybe there's a little like soulmate-y, wanting to believe in soulmate-y concepts there. But I love Mobile because it's the idea that you left the hometown and you got famous and you have to come back to it. And the people treat you differently even though you're the same person. But okay. But I need to say that I love Love Sucks because it is perfect, it is on the nose, but she had to take so many albums just to get to that album. That's why it sounds so easy and like, it probably for her, it felt like it was nothing and it came out like water out of her mouth, but she worked like 15 years, wait, is it 20 years since Let Go? 20 years for that album to come out. Like, it just puts it into perspective. There is a lot of good songs on there, like Avalanche, like Love Sucks, the title track. I recommend starting the album at Love Sucks. Skip the first 4 or 5 tracks, start the album at Love Sucks. That's where the meat is at. Love that album. But okay, let's go back to, I think it was 1954 when this book was written. 34, maybe 1934. That's crazy because there's still people alive that were born in 1934. But in this book we got to explore more concepts of life in the 1800s and how minuscule, how minimal, how unmaterialistic, how home life this book shared. And if it wasn't for Laura penning down her experiences, we kind of would have forgot, because I read on Wikipedia that this was a family-oriented book, and that was spread over time through hearsay. Like if you talk to your grandparents, they're telling you stories that they heard or that they remember, but no one's ever written them down. And you know, sometimes like if you keep repeating something, you change the details and you change what you remember. So we need writers in the world to remind us of how it was at the very beginning when America was young. America is still young. I noticed that America, compared to like India, compared to like Russia, compared to like Australia, it's the young sibling. It's the youngest sibling. Okay, well, not the youngest sibling, but it's the young sibling that everyone gives a lot of attention to, a lot of gifts to, they respect it, they let it speak. It's so funny how if you view like a family structure, like firstborn, middle child, youngest child, I think America fits the youngest child. What do you think? Do you think America's the youngest child? It's like the rebellious, I could do anything, my parents are gonna love me. Okay, but let's see, Laura is a middle child, and it's so interesting to see Laura as a 5-year-old. Her older sister, Mary, it's so interesting to like, I started reading the books, the Little House on the Prairie books, when Mary was blind. So it's so interesting to go back to the first book before Mary was blind, before this sickness. So it's so interesting to like, just to know about what's going to happen to her in the future, and she doesn't know what's going to happen to her, but it's so cool to like imagine like, I know what's going to happen to you, and it's like, and you want to tell that person not to take their eyesight or anything for granted because it will be taken away. But okay, she's a middle child and Mary's the oldest child, and she has short brown hair and she has natural light blonde hair. And even in the 1800s, we had that stigma or that societal currency of beauty still intact, in the sense that even at 5 years old, she knew that blonde-haired, light-skinned, blue-eyed girl was more beautiful. And she envied Mary for her naturally blonde hair because she has brown hair. Like that was like to a 5-year-old that didn't have television, that didn't have internet, that didn't even have like rapport from like a society around her because she lived in the woods. So like, how does that get to you? That's like wild. And then we have her baby sister Carrie. So she is a middle ugly duckling middle child. And Mary is the beautiful first child, and we have our youngest child. But I loved how we got to hear how they explored birthdays and Christmases, because it's so interesting that they valued, because they didn't have money and value, literally, they valued making homemade gifts for each other. Like Ma made her her first doll, and that was her gift. And later on in the other books, they started making blankets and dresses and hats for themselves as gifts, and they had to hide it around their house so they wouldn't know that the gift that they were making for each other. Which is so sweet, isn't it? Because now you just get a $20 bill, head to Target, pick up a candle. Here, I bought you this. I didn't even put thought into it. I didn't even think about what scent you like. Maybe I did, or maybe I didn't. But here's the candle that I bought. So it's cool to see how our American culture, and maybe like literal human culture, that we used to make each other things. I like that. Let's see, what else did I like about this book? Oh my god, it showed me that man was the man and woman was the woman, in the sense that Pa did all of the masculine, like he was the hunter and gatherer of goods, of meats, of food, of building the house. And there is one passage in here that reads about him loading up his gun and him making his own bullets to go shoot bears and pigs and panthers in case they attacked him. But it was so cool because this book was very observant. So it was like Laura observing and then writing about what she thought. So she was like observing her dad making bullet powder for the bullets so he can use them the next day, and how his routine, how he poured hot water into it. So it was very like, I'm observing the world and I'm writing about it. So funny how I talked about Avril Lavigne's Let Go. That's what Let Go was about. It was, I'm a little girl observing the world and then I'm writing about it. And Love Sucks was like, the world already did me wrong, the world already did me right. So now I'm just gonna write what I feel instead of like writing about what I observe. Do you think that shows like artistic growth? Like your first album is like what you see, and by the time you get to the fifth album, it's like, fuck this. I gain confidence in my feelings and how to write songs. I'm just gonna throw up. I think a critic's response to Love Sucks is that it seems unfocused, but that's the whole point. That's what pop punk is. Like when you have pop artists and producers who know how to make a hit song, you need a pop punk rebel in there to be like, just throw middle fingers up to everyone, like be like, this came out fast, this came out easy, and this is a reaction to all the perfect ballads, all the perfect trap rap songs. It was a response. Okay, but let's read a passage. Okay, that one's kind of boring. Let's go to the next one. Uncle Peter went on, but Prince jumped into the path ahead of her and snarled at her. He paid no attention to her talking and scolding. He just kept on showing his teeth and snarling. And when she tried to get past him, he kept in front of her and snapped at her. That scared her. I should think it would, Ma said. He was so savage. I thought he was going to bite me. Oh my god. Hello, Avril Lavigne, bite me. Said Aunt Eliza. I believe he would have. I never heard of such a thing, said Ma. What on earth did you do? I turned right around and ran into the house where the children were and slammed the door, Aunt Eliza answered. So this passage was talking about how Aunt Eliza was pregnant with a baby and she would go to the stream every day to get water, to cook, to drink, to make tea. Isn't that cool? We used to like go to streams to collect our water and then go back home instead of like going to Costco and buying like a 40 pack of plastic water bottles. We had to actually go to the stream. But okay. And she used to take her dog with her because her dog would protect her. And dogs can't speak, right? But they can't speak, so they use their other senses more. So they use their ears and their instinct more. And the dog had an instinct of like panic and of awareness that danger was upon them. And they live in the woods, and the woods are known for the predators of bears and panthers. So the dog knew something was up. So Aunt Eliza, being a human, following her brain and her intellect and her methodical thoughts, was like, no, I need to go get this, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna come back. No and ifs or buts, right? Very human. So she was getting mad at the dog, telling her like, and kicking her and shoving her, like, calm down, but the dog would like kept biting her skirts, and the dog never bit her clothes before and actually ripped her clothes off. And that caught her attention. She was like, this is odd. So she just ran back to the house and closed the door because she thought the dog was like turning savage to her and wanting to attack her. But the dog actually just had insight that the air smelled funny, and the dog caught onto it. And maybe the human would too if they weren't so using much their head. But 10 pages later, we get to see that there was actually a panther, and there was panther footprints all over the stream. And if Aunt Elisa would have gotten there, she would have been killed, and the dog would have been killed. So the dog had like, it could hear and it could smell that something was around and was trying to help their human, but the human was not listening until he had to like invoke like pressure onto her to get her to go home because she would have died. And then after that, they started respecting and like listening to the dogs. It's like they got a cat in the 1880s to eat the rats. They got a dog to protect them and to hear when wolves were around. So it's interesting to like give so much responsibility to a dog and not to see it as someone or something so smart and so instinctual and protecting. And that dog knew that from its basic instinct, which is so interesting. That is why you need to have more dogs in your life and not so much people. Am I right? Dogs over people. But okay, let's see. Is there anything else that I liked in this book? Oh my god, yes. Dance at Grandpa's. At Grandpa's house, there was a party going on. I don't know how they told everyone there was. It probably took like a month to send your invitations out because you had to actually walk or go on your horses to everyone's houses and tell them that you're having a party soon. Crazy, right? Now we could just send a text or a Snapchat. But okay, there was a party, and this was the first instance that I saw that it was a whole bunch of women from the 1800s together in one room. And it was so cool because it talked us through and told us like how they got ready, what they thought was beautiful. They saved like beautiful dresses for like special occasions, and there was no makeup. Like I was expecting to see some makeup details in this book, but again, Laura was 5 years old, so she's telling it from like that 5-year-old perspective. I'm gonna look up and see what makeup products or what they use for makeup products, like berries or berries. Like I don't know what you're gonna use, right? But it told us like how they combed their hair until it was bone straight. And now I have to use like 450 degrees in my hair to get it straight. And they just had to comb it and braid it very daintily and prettily. And then they would like spend like 30 minutes like mapping their hair around their face so it could shape it and look very beautiful and feminine. It's just so cool to see like the 1800s, how they got beautiful or how they got dolled up, because it seems so easy and natural to us to do now. But people, females, males have been getting ready since the beginning of time, right? We're still kind of the same. It's only been 200 years. That's why when we see like politics or social uproar, because we think intellectually that we're so like far upon the 1800s and so like advanced as a society, but 200 years isn't that much. That's 2 lifetimes. That's it. Like of 100-year-olds, if you want to view lifetimes as 100 years old, it's like people, it's only like 2 generations. So like the mentalities that were formed back then are still intact today. We might think they're not, but once you turn the internet off, once you turn the electricity off, what are we gonna do? And there's no gasoline. We're gonna act the same as we did in the 1800s. It's kind of weird to think about that. Imagine if they turned all the electricity off, all the lighting off, all the gas off. What would we do? I would just sit down and read books to my dogs. What would you do? And no, I would put makeup on so that I can feel pretty and then read books to my dogs. What would you do when it seems that the world has taken everything from you? But here I am saying goodbye from the 2022s of the world. This book was kind of hard to read because there was it's like she wrote one story from 1 month, and the next one was from like 2 months later, and the next one was from like a week, and then one of them was like the next day. So it was like a collage. I love collages. It was like a collage of stories, and the later books are more like day to day, week to week, month to month, or season to season. This one was like season, year, month, day. So it was a little hard to read. So I wouldn't recommend reading this in one go. I read it in excerpts. Is that the word? Okay. I read it in small bunches of time. That's what it means, right? Like the definition of experts. Okay, I don't care. Like I don't care. But I read it in like small spurts of time, and I got to enjoy it because I don't know, if you read something from like 200 years ago, it puts literally in this instant perspective of how you're living life today. Say you like are like angry that the world is like done you bad, or you're getting over a breakup, or like someone died in your life. You read like how like they would go get water, and how they would have to camp out for like a night to like bring meat, and if you didn't bring meat for the family, you would like starve. So it like puts your life now into perspective so much by teaching you or reminding you that life is so easy, in parentheses, now. And it was so easy back then. But peace out. I'll see you at my next Little House on the Prairie book review. Peace out.
Cliche